Hello, everybody. Yeah, first everybody excited for something very special. The second less. Ready? Hello. Excitement. And the Sanji 쪽에도 좀 치우지도 좀 보세요. 내가 가리면 치우지도 좀 보세요.
So Buddha said, whatever activities you start, you should follow like the stream of a river.
근데 진리마칭이다. 하다 가시게 시어지 나도 산지 치우지 말이다. 근데 다음에는 쉬어서.
So if there is teachings of the Buddha which can be understood or learned just in a few days or a few months, then it will be very easy, right? So it's the nature of human beings to have that expectation to do everything very easily and to understand very easily.
Well, especially this country, everything is very easy. Then people think everything is sad. But
so if you study again and again, read the text again and again, and listen to the teachings again and again, then maybe you can understand. But otherwise, just by listening to the teachings once or twice, you will not understand. Let alone understanding, people might think that it doesn't make any sense. So here, especially when we're studying about that, the consciousness and awarenesses, then it is mostly talking about the mind, how the mind and the aggregates, the five aggregates are related, and how the object possessor or the subjects are related. So if we study those, those parts, someone said that part. If we study that, that causes a lot of doubts or a lot of thoughts to come up. So, on one hand, it is good to study those. That makes you understand even more. So if there is no one, to point out the faults, if you say this, this is the kind of fault and so forth. If you don't have that kind of suggestions or opinions from others, then you just study whatever it is there. Then you don't get much doubts.
Okay. That kanji maji, ta ji susu kanji jewa kati chima na kanji, samji tambi na kanji komo tobe, teacher dengi lobi na chegi ye, nyame na chegi ye,
and also it is very important to always carry that motivation, thinking that I'm must achieve to the full enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient. For that reason, I'm going to study this text, I'm going to do this practice, I'm going to do these activities, and so forth. So it's important to have that motivation all the time.
어디지? 다 들으면서 강기 같이 찍기 내가 뜻을 납기 있어.
So now we're going to study, I think, a little bit on that someone's opinion. Someone's.
제가 나 방금 말하고 소소고 지금 우리 인바도 너한테 가는 바꾸고 그래서.
To study that, I mean to understand or to see the difference of that. When someone says this is the definition of such and such, and to know that that is not the correct one, you have to know the actual definition of our own system.
다 가는 거 아니더라 다 예당이 지니는 딱 가서 방금 예거든데 예당이 지니게 된 거서 맞아요.
So last time we talked about the definitions of the object and object possessors, right?
제가 다 말로라 아니 예거든데 류를 봐서 이렇게 되는 맞 류를 봐서.
And so in our own system, the definition of the object is that which is known by the awareness, right? That's the definition of object according to our own system, right?
다 예를 봐서나 간지 그런 거 여봐. 그러나 이제 나요 제 유익하는 여봐로. 근데 이제 그게 다 예사 바탕이 줘 봐. 예를 봐서 또 보고 말했어.
And so for the object possessor, and it has this the thing that possesses is respect to object, right? So to have this, 유리가.
예를 봐.
로리.
근데 류를 봐 있어요. 근데 다 류를 봐 이제 열어야 돼. 간지 고락동이지고 그래서 고락동에 희바 강사 지고.
So that which is known by an awareness, right? That is the object's the definition of object. So if it is an object, it has to have a subject which knows it, right?
보다 대 마치 간지 예를 봐. 그래 류를 봐서 이제 되니스. 와. 다들 가서 강한 뭔가들 같이 됐지라 그렇게 가라자스. 또 예를 봐를 되니스. 이 거기 강한 거 때문에 말하는 거 고주로 되도. 류를 봐지 되니.
So then in the beginning there, the introduction part, just after the introduction on page 2, you see that if someone posits as the definition of awareness, that which knows an object, and as the object, as the definition of object.
다 예가 되는데 예를 봐를 되니스. 로트는 거는 예를 봐를 되니스. 다 이치가 되니라고 아니다. 예를 봐를 되니스. 무슨 다 이치가 된데
지금 로이츠니셔요.
로트는
유리츠니 말다.
이거 다 예를 봐서. 다 류를 봐. 예를 봐를 되니스.
네, 로이츠니셔.
그런데 다 어디가 류를 봐 이치 되니스 나스. 류를 봐 이치 되니스 나 제마치지 예를 봐 이마다 로 인베셔스. 맞는 데다 대셔. 사과는 이 시바인바다 예를 봐 이베셔 다 기회했어. 아니 다들 지나가 가시 예를 봐 류드니다 류를 봐서 이제 되니스.
로리 보죠. So here it says there, so that the definition of object, if someone says that which is known by an awareness, that which is known by an awareness, and that which knows an object is the definition of awareness, and that which is known by an awareness is the definition of object. If someone says that, then what is the...
류를 봐 이제 돼.
예를 봐 로이츠.
예를 봐 류지.
로리 봐 저기 있지.
류를 봐 저기.
로리 봐 이거. 일찍 봐도 나와.
나와도 지 마시. 담보들 고다에 단 가시. 그리고 견제하다 담보들이라고 담보.
그래.
류를 봐 가시 류 예를 봐 류니까 류에서 간다 류에서 간다 예를 봐래서 다 이체가 되는데로 이체가 되니까 너무 그것도 대만이 봤어. 그런 이체가 되면 뭐 이체를
전에 뭐 로치 보셔야 돼.
로치 보셔야 돼. 로치 딱 로세를 가래 시바세를 가래 나서. 그거 시바세를 가래서 나 아니 예를 봐. 딱 예를 봐지려고
So in the definition of an object, there's no difference, right? So it's the same as our own system. Actually the debate is on the definition of an awareness. So that which knows an object is the definition of awareness. If we say that, what will be the false in that? So last time we talked about the mind, right? The object, the object possessor. So the object possessor, there are three. So we talked about the awareness, the person, the sound, and the awareness. And so the definition of an awareness is a knower, right? Knower is the definition of awareness. But here, someone is saying that the definition of awareness, is that which knows an object. So this is a different definition that someone is giving, right? That which knows an object, as the definition of awareness given by someone. So last time we talked about the awareness. The definition of awareness is knower, right? And the definition of consciousness is that which is clear and knowing. So that's the awareness. This is the awareness, knower, consciousness are all synonymous.
Why? That
So it says, right? So it's, we will respond. It absurdly follows with respect to the subject, a valid cognizer, that object is a knower because of being an awareness. You understand that? Follows with respect to the subject, a valid cognizer. So in other words, it is asking valid cognizer. You know valid cognizer, right? Valid cognizer is a type of an awareness, So it is awareness, right? But does it know its object?
Yeah.
So the valid cognizer, does it knows an object? It knows the object?
It's cognizing, it has to have an object to cognize.
So it has to be new,
So
infallible, and there's a third part, I'm forgetting. New, infallible, and what's the other part?
Yeah, but does it know its object? Does it know an object? The valid cognizer, does it know an object?
It must.
It does, yes. Oh, conceptualize, yes. So there's a different way of
Tibetan, which means like the object is knower, object is knower, object is known, right? Object is known. The awareness knows an object, so therefore object is knower. Is object knower? So
What's it?
No.
the object is knower.
No.
Object is not knower, right? But it's known by so the object is known by the subject, right? And so the object is known by subject. So that means known and knower, they are same meaning, right? Known and knower. And so the object is known, object is known, and object is knower. That's in English it would be two different, but the knower and knower only in grammatically they are different, but in meaning wise they are same, right? He's known and he knows, So it's the same thing, right? It's a knowing and knower, known, all these things. Grammatically they are different, but meaning is same, right? Known, past, present, like that, right? Known, knowing, like knower, all these have the same meaning. So that's the difference only. So the debate is on that, central on that, So it doesn't make much sense in English, but in Tibetan, so it is the object is known, right? It's the same saying object is knower. It's the same as saying when it says object is known by subject, it's the same as saying object is also knower. So if object is knower, then that's a big mistake, right?
Yeah, but in English it
English doesn't make sense, right? So that's what in Tibetan is knower and known. So so the object is known by subject, and the object is a knower. It's like kind of a tricking, like a trick, that you play the kind of a trick, So because you're saying is known, therefore it is a knower. So because it's known, therefore it is a knower. And if you say therefore it is knower, if you agree with that, then you have to say object is knower. Then you have to say that the table is knower because it's an object, and so forth. So that's the trick. But it doesn't make sense in English. So that's why I was telling this later. And so here you can see it says here the defender interprets this with thus the debate centers around a proper grammatical formulation. So that's what it means. It's a known and knower.
다 원하 빼는 28회 그동안 그렇게 되는 거예요. 제가 28회거든요.
So it's an object knower. In general, if you're asked if object is object knower, is an object knower?
No.
It's not, right?
Could be though.
Could be.
Knower could be an object.
Yes, knower is object, definitely.
Yeah.
Knower is object. There's no doubt about that, right? The question is not. The question is an object knower?
말해봤어요. 워낙 인기보를 했어요.
What about object? Is an object functioning thing?
It's functioning, yeah.
So
No, I don't think so. Not
Take
necessarily.
very careful, okay? This is not just a tricky, this is something meaning.
An object can be a non-functioning thing. The horn of a rabbit is still an object.
Not even that. Something permanent.
object has to exist,
It
right?
has to exist.
Something permanent.
If it is an object, it has to exist, right?
그래서
Something
이거를
permanent
봤어요.
doesn't
이거를 봐.
function, but it's an
Object,
object.
yeah.
It's not a suitable
이거를 이번에 이거를
Yes. The object is existent, right? Object is existence.
이거를 따받은 분이 있으면 와서
So the existence, the prominent and the impermanent existence, right?
다 따받은 거거든요. 일.
So the object, so there's if it's object, it has to be either permanent object or impermanent object, right? So the object itself is what? Permanent object or impermanent object? If it is object, it has to be either permanent object or impermanent object, right? And so what is the object itself? The object itself is a permanent object or impermanent object?
Either.
Huh?
It's either permanent or impermanent.
It is what?
If it's an object, it has to be either one, right? So which one is it?
인간이면
It cannot be both, right?
인간이면 와서
It can be both,
Yeah.
따받은 분이 뭔가 말해.
but it cannot because the impermanent object and permanent object are contradictory, right? Directly contradicting with each other. So there cannot be something which is both of them.
Oh, you're saying specifically, like, can an object be both?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Because
Yeah.
object in general means something that exists, so,
Yes.
oh, no, not both permanent.
Both permanent. Yeah. This is not possible right? Because permanent and impermanent objects are directly contradicting with each other. Therefore, they cannot have a common locus, and that is both a permanent and impermanent object, right? And so, if it is, then it has to be either one. And you cannot do both, right? It cannot be neither, cannot be both, it has to be either one, right? If it's an object, right? So which one is it?
Impermanent.
Impermanent object?
Yes.
You were saying?
Yes.
Impermanent. Metabolism. So object itself is an impermanent object?
Yes.
Okay. Are you guys agree with him?
What is the object itself? Is
I don't
The
know.
object in general.
In
If it's-
general, it could be
Anything that exists.
not specific, in general, the term object covers both.
Yeah, just everything that exists.
Yeah.
Everything that exists can be object, right? It's an object. So object, is it permanent or impermanent? Impermanent? Impermanent,
It's a tricky
impermanent,
question.
impermanent.
If you mean object, that's something, if you mean non-conceptual object.
No, just object.
No.
It's not saying conceptual object, non-conceptual, not saying permanent object or impermanent, just object.
Isn't there?
If we say a specific object, then you can say whether it's permanent or impermanent, right?
Permanent
If you say,
awareness.
okay, this table, which is an object, is it permanent object or impermanent? You can say, oh, it's an impermanent object, right? But the object, when it's
So
an
it's just like
object,
it's
Just
neither
like
both
awareness
or
is
just-
permanent, in the same way that the object would be.
awareness is not permanent.
If you say object as a label,
Yeah,
it's a conceptualization, then it's permanent.
저도
The
다다 빼자
way you
Okay,
said
so
it,
you're saying permanent. Quite permanent.
저도 빼자 쳤나 오늘만 때려 본다.
permanent, the way you said it.
It's true, it can't be anything.
이게
Object in general is.
말을 할수
어.
저도 빼자 들면 되게 올라오는 거 같아.
네?
오 호텔에 이었을 때 가는 거 호텔에
I have a question.
무슨 거 하지 말이죠?
올라온다. 이 호텔에 간시 다 주는 못 와야지 이거를 와서 저는 못 가기 못 이라도
So those who said impermanent object, right? The object is an impermanent object,
Yeah.
and so therefore it is a functioning object, right? Functioning thing,
Yes.
functioning thing.
탑 쳐서 틀린 말하도 호텔은 이거 많이 쓰는데 와서 빼자. 이 시바 많이 받아 이거 많이 비싸졌어.
So this is, anyway, so he says, if he says the reason is not established, it follows that the subject by the cognizer is an awareness because of being a knower. If the basic consequences that with respect to the valid cognizer object is knower is accepted, it absolutely follows with respect to the subject, a valid cognizer, that object is a consciousness because object is a knower. The reason has been accepted. So then there is a grammatical play here. The challenge treats an object as a subject nominated in both the predicate and the reason, whereas the defender would prefer to treat it as an object nominated, that which knows an object, or knower of an object. If it is accepted, the object is consciousness, is a consciousness. It follows with respect to the subject, the valid cognizer, that object is not a consciousness because object is not a thing. Right? So it says object is not a thing, means like object is not a functioning thing. Right? So object is not a functioning thing. In this case, would be same as saying impermanent thing. So the object is not a thing, the object is not functioning thing, object is not an impermanent thing.
근데 이사 단대로 지금 받게 돼서 이거 뭐 말하려고 와서
So this is our own system in saying that the object is not a thing.
다 오늘 다 이거 가지고 말면서는 지금 연시에 와서 이거 세야들아 가르나 아니 못하면 제대로 지금 와서 다바에나 제대로 마지막으로 와서
So if it's a permanent, or how do you define permanent or impermanent, right? Impermanent is something that disintegrates, right? That perishes.
Product, yes.
Yeah, that perishes by dependent cause and condition. And a permanent thing is that stays like that all the time, which doesn't perish or disintegrate by dependent cause and condition, right? So that's how you define, or the differentiate the permanent and impermanent objects.
근데 다 이제 가려서 이 다바에 지금 가려다
And so the object doesn't perish, right? Object doesn't perish in general, not this particular object or that particular object, or the space in a particular object, not that kind of particular object, but the object itself doesn't perish. Right? Object is object all the time. It's existent all the time, right? The object is object all the time, so that is there all the time. So that doesn't perish, so therefore it has to be permanent, right? The object itself has to be permanent. And so what would be the reason for being a permanent? What would be the reason for being a permanent?
Doesn't disintegrate.
지금 말했지.
이게 지금 나왔어 이게 지금 돼야 이게 제대로 쉬어라 이게 몇 팀이 나왔어
So there isn't a time when there is no object, right? There is object all the time, object in general. Of course, this object, there will be time. If it gets burned by fire, it will disintegrate, right? So there will be time when this object is not there, but will there be a time there will be no object? Right, so object will be there all the time, right? So the object doesn't disintegrate. Therefore, object is permanent, right?
그래서 예와 따바이라고 그래서 예와.
So therefore, same thing, existent, is existent and exists all the time. It will be there all the time, so therefore that's also permanent.
예와 있는 따바이 뭐고? 예와 있는 따바이 뭐?
So the object is permanent, but if it is object, it is not necessary to be permanent. So the difference? If this object is permanent, but if it is an object, it is not necessary to be permanent.
따셔도 빼셔.
For example, can you give an example of something which is object but not a permanent?
This book.
Take this.
야, 스코트야. 근데다 열 따바이 있어. 이름이 뭐 많이 있어. 근데다 열 따바 따바 많이 나고 그래서 와.
So you can say, the object is such and such, but if it is an object, it's not necessary to be such and such. The object is permanent, but if it is an object, it's not necessary to be permanent.
이 시바오 많이 있어.
And of course, in that case, and also the object is not, so because of that, anyway, the object is not consciousness. So here we're going back to again, known and knower, right? So because it's known, the object is known, therefore object is knower. It's similar to saying that. And so, of course, in that case, clearly in English use, of course, it's not. It is known, but it's not knower. But in Tibetan, it would be the same as saying known and knower are almost same. Right?
근데다 여행이 시방에 와서 여행이 시방에.
But there is a common locus of object and consciousness or awareness, right? Common locus. You understand the common locus? That which is both of it, right? So what do it be?
Example?
Awareness and stuff.
그래.
Yeah, but isn't there any other kind of awareness?
What's the question?
Is that anyway? So the common locus of object and awareness.
야, 여행이 시방에 왜?
Can you say it?
I'm gonna try. If it must be object, if for it to exist, it must be apprehended by an awareness.
Yes.
So object could be part of an awareness.
So there are many different kind of awarenesses, right?
Yes, there are.
No matter how many kinds there are, they all are object, right? So any kind of consciousness will be a consciousness. Any kind of consciousness will be a consciousness, and will be an object also, right? And so can you give kind of name? Can you name any kind of consciousness? The eye consciousness, right? So the eye consciousness will be the common locus of consciousness and awareness. And object. So eye consciousness is consciousness. Eye consciousness is object. So therefore, it will be the common locus of these two things. So that's what common locus means.
또 좀더 다 이제 남주 사님 또 르빠파 그리고 르빠 패야도 선 빼패도 그러.
And so can you give, now you have to think about all these different examples, so something of a common locus of such and such things. that pressure, you got to get the shot.
야, 그 other one. 여기서 other one.
Mental consciousness.
Mental consciousness, yeah, that'll be it.
Tongue consciousness.
야, the other.
What about the shot? So what about the thing and object? Thing and object. Can you give a common locus of thing and object? Or impermanent thing and object? And object. The common locus.
Everything in this room.
Huh?
Like this table.
Okay, yeah, the table, right? The table is an impermanent thing and table is an object. So therefore that's the common locus. Yeah, so you have to give more, you have to think about many examples. The more you think about examples, then the more understanding you will gain. So it will be more clear and more stable in your mind.
시자도 록시드야. 시자도 록시드. 시자도 록시드.
And so what about object of knowledge and mind? Is there a common locus of object of knower? I mean the object, object of knower and object of knowledge and mind. Is there a common locus of object of knowledge and mind or consciousness?
Yeah.
What is object of knower? or object of knowledge. What is object of knowledge?
Something that exists.
So everything that exists is object of knowledge, right? There isn't anything that is not known by, that's not known by mind or awareness, right? So everything that is an object of knower, right? Object of knowledge, right? And so therefore anything, and so you can easily give the common logos of object of knowledge and consciousness, right? What would that be? So object of knowledge here is the same as what?
Something that
Same as object, same as existence.
Yeah.
So everything that exists is object of knowledge. Everything that exists is object, and so therefore they are all synonymous, right? So this is again different way of asking what's the common logos of object and awareness, and then you hear Geshe is asking what would be the common logos of object of knowledge and awareness.
consciousness, everything that you said.
So you have to give one example.
아들 배보다 10배 배보다 안 보신대.
Or you can say a valid cognizer, or you can say something. Just give an example. 배보다 그래? 배보다 그래?
배보다 시작하신다.
So is there a common logos of matter and consciousness?
Matter?
Matter and consciousness?
Yes.
There is?
Focus, no, wait a minute, no.
Matter and consciousness?
Does it matter have to be material?
Yes. Right.
So-
Material.
No, they cannot.
There's no common logos, right?
Cannot.
신대사는 인간이고 인간이지로.
Yeah. So the common logos would be that which would be both of them, right?
강사도 미셔대요. 강사도 미셔대.
What about person and human being? Is there a common logos of person and human being? Yes.
그래.
Oh, okay.
제가 강사를.
And both human being and a person.
근데 둘로다 성직신대요.
What about a sentient being and animal? Is there a common logos?
그래.
What?
A cat is a sentient being.
아,
A cat is a...
아니 강사도 성직신대요.
I said kind of, yeah.
Oh, sorry.
What about person and Buddha? Is there a common logos of person and a Buddha?
His Holiness.
Okay.
Yes, there is.
Other than His Holiness, any example?
Shakyamuni Buddha.
Yeah, Buddha Shakyamuni, right?
그. that's
So you understand the common logos?
좀 아까서
In English, it would be intersection.
Yeah, you can say intersection.
There's something in the intersection, something in common.
Yeah, something in common. Yeah.
What do they call that diagram with the two, is that a
Venn-
Venn diagram?
Venn diagram.
Yeah, there you go.
What do you call that?
Venn diagram with the two
Venn
circles,
diagram?
so the little thing in the middle.
Venn diagram.
뭐야?
Okay.
다 일제당 가로 이해당 10박신대요. 이해당 10박신대. 이해 나잖아. 다 돌리고 다 일로당 대화라. 다 어디다까지 감을 좋아하고서 그전에 반대대로 주지 말 써놓고 하나 무슨 빠 써놓고 뭐 도박 뭐 팽을 했어.
Yeah. So anyway, those terms, like common logos or intersection or what do you call that?
The Venn diagram.
Venn diagram. Whatever.
Two circles, it's just a picture. It's a way to visualize it.
Yeah. Anyway, we have to establish one term, and then when I say what is the common logos of such and such, then you have to understand what that means, which is both of them.
어떻게 다들 단도 다나도 가지고 넘어가시. 다 가다만도 이쪽에 되셔야 말을 이쪽에 되는 거 이쪽에 되니.
And so last time we talked about the object possessor, right? What is the definition?
Thing that possesses. It's object.
That's right.
아니 배자 가시다나 이쪽에 되니 시바 세면서 아니 이보시하는 말이었어. 가시다나 강사도 제시라니 제시해지고 이쪽에서 이쪽이 많이 있어요. 그래서 통영 처리 농용 막 이거 아니었어.
And so, in some texts it says, here it says a thing that possesses respect to object, but in some texts it says consciousness that possesses respect to object. So there's the difference in that, and that excludes sound, the expressive sound and person being object possessor. Because if you say a consciousness that has its respective object, and it has this, is inclusively only for consciousness, right? And so that kind of excludes the person as an expressive sound to be object possessor. And so in that text, how they explain is that the person and sound, expressive sounds are etymologically object possessor, but they are not object possessor in real. Just etymologically. So just because they possess some kind of object, therefore they are called object possessor, but they are not really object possessor. So just like the cup has a handle, therefore you can call it object possessor, but not because it's really object possessor. It only is called such and such, but not really object possessor.
완전 니나라 레이치도 못하셔. 대자 강다도 니가다 그래 이치 이스람도 왔어.
But in this text, it says thing, right? So thing, therefore, both awareness, both expressive sound and person are included in the in the object possessor.
근데 제대로 보시면 내대 지면서 해가지고 딱 생각할 수 있어. 티나가야 아니 라이치 내가 시바스야 그래서
That's what it is.
대대 지면서 가지고 내대는 고 대대 지면서
맞아.
내대 지면서 사실.
Dedu.
내대 가지다 생각거리죠.
Dedu.
가지 생각거리죠.
And anyway, so Geshe Ngawang Tenley, one of Lama Tsongkhapa's main disciples, stated in his text, in one of his texts, as that a consciousness that possesses is a respective object, consciousness.
Do you heard that? Do you heard this?
Have you heard? Have you heard of that? No.
Yeah. 어떻게 가지 배가는 들이 열어서 가지 이제 강사도 지시자니 아니 이제 많이 했어. 그래서 대단 쉬어지나. 이제 생각하고 많이 했어.
So in those texts, they say that the expressive sound and person are not real object possessors.
다들 다시 저는 간다 강사하고 이게 또 하다 강사도 있지. 근데 제자자부터 제자 이거는 이제를 했어.
So anyway, so here, because person knows the object, therefore it's object possessor, and expressive sound also expresses an object, therefore object possessor.
어디지? 다 지시했으면 다 부모가 가다 또배가 강사 되게 제외돼 강사 되게 들어가도 왔어.
So it is with regards to person, the definition of person, some things being a person, is being imputed independence upon any of its five aggregates.
다 이부 강가 이부 인식이 부모하고 강가는 되게 어렵다. 이부 인식이.
And so all the functional things are included in five aggregates. In the five aggregates.
근데 다 방법을 다 부모가 가야지 부모가 가고 있어.
So you know what are the five aggregates, right?
수지 부모가 가래.
Aggregate of form.
수지 부모가 수 차상 수지 부모가 되겠어. 수 강가.
So aggregate of form, so all kinds of forms are included in the aggregate of form.
아니 수지 부모. 아니 조율 부모. 다 좋아되잖아. 다 조율을 차상하는 데 그랬어.
And the aggregate of feelings, so all kinds of feelings are included in the aggregate.
아니 느시다 그거. 느시다 다 시바 강가된 거야. 다 시바 일찍 되는 거 그래서 생중 마행이 시바 먹거든.
So then there's the aggregate of the composition of factors. Discrimination, right? So composition factor and discrimination, right? So aggregate of discriminations, and those includes all those types of the minds. Those types.
아니 느시 보면은 아니 시바열에 네모디지열에 다 뭐고 그랬어 되구나.
And then the aggregate of composition factor, has all other kinds of things, other kind of things like the non-associated composition factors and so forth.
그리고 반은 세중합치 같이 나네 아니 소화된 느시 트이는데 다 쉬주 시작하대 느시 어디 그랬어. 느시 보면서 소화된 느시 바뀌네.
남식은 뭐야?
느시 보면 다 맞지 거야.
삼중 남식은 뭐야?
나중에 내가 뭐 느시 보면 바뀌고 느시 보면은 주대 느시 보면 주대 말반 니시 안에 주대 느시나 아니 생주 60시리대 고배라고
삼중 좀 알지.
아니 이 방법이 10시고
somewhat original, right?
늦어가는 그래서.
So all the among the 51 mental factors, 51 among the 51 mental factors, the first, only two, the discrimination and the feeling, you exclude those, and all other rest of the 49 mental factors are all compositional factors.
근데 내면듯이 차사되면 돼 그래서.
And all the non-associated compositional factors.
근데
are
내면듯이 대시 샤다 해줘요.
So can you give an example, illustration of non-associated compositional factor?
Merit?
Everybody agree with them?
Habits, imprints.
How about that?
Geshe.
Yeah, this is good. You guys very good. 아니, 다른 때까지 조금 주는 거 알아야 되겠어. 아니, 박차세야, 공시세야, 너, 좋아? 아니, 뭐 따봐, 시와서, 너 강가 내면 되겠어. 따봐서, 시와서. 좋아? 아니, 깨워서.
Metaphor.
뭐 따봐 내면 되죠.
Mobile.
뭐보다 조금 정말로. 아니, 들어왔어, 누웠어. 또 강가 내면 되죠. 깨워서.
So yeah, so all those things are non-compositional factor, non-associated compositional factor. So like the sitting or going,
아니, 들어가지.
sitting, like sitting,
Sitting.
going, walking, going, or the thing itself, is non-compositional factor, right? It's not non-associated. So it's non-associated, not associated with the matter, as a matter, or
Matter, yeah.
or consciousness, right? So that's called the non-associated. So anything that is not those two, but it's a thing, it's a non-associated compositional factor.
So walking and sitting are examples of that?
Example of that.
아니, 저저
The
박차세요.
question, would a rabbit's horn be a non-compositional?
No. It's not exist.
What you're after now?
You have to exist.
But it's
Well, it's
not,
not existence. No.
but is it, I mean,
It has to be existent. It has to be thing.
so what is that? So we have a nonsensical thing, how does that fall into the categories? Is it an object or is it?
Non-existence.
예화를 봤어.
Like the term, I can picture the rabbit's horn in my mind,
Yes.
right?
예.
Well, like the imagination.
Yes.
What is that? Is it a non-valid object?
Oh, I
I'm a
see.
little hung up, I mean, I know it's not
Yeah,
real,
yeah.
but it's still an object of my mind, so what is that? How do we label it? I'm confused.
대지수.
대지가 대지됐어.
대지를 가르쳐서 그래서
대지는 나야 됐어.
대지를 이루셔.
나이도 이랬어. 나이도 저기 알아봤어.
근데 그 쉐바를 가르쳐.
이걸.
내가 이유들한테 가르쳐 제발에 메타버를
아,
쉐바를
근데 나이 따봐라. 대지 따봐라.
So it's just the image, right? The mental image in your mind, of that certain thing. So the mental image, yes, it exists. But the horn on a rabbit's head doesn't exist.
Right.
But the image, in your mind, of the horn on a rabbit's head, that exists. That will be the appearing object. So that appears to your mind, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that will be the appearing object. And so that, because it is an image, it's a mental image, what do you call it, meaning generality, or mental image, therefore it is permanent. So it's a permanent object.
Okay, slowly.
데미지 있어야 된 남중간도 다 세제라 싸움다 깔고 쉬어.
So that image is not the real thing, right? So of course, there's no real horn of the rabbit's
So
head.
it's not a product, so
Not
it's
a problem.
permanent.
Yeah.
Interesting.
What if rabbits evolve before us?
Hmm?
Would it then exist?
We need another example.
What?
If a rabbit evolved horns on their head?
Evolves?
Like if they evolve over time and they
Uh-huh.
grow horns?
Then we'd use wings.
Yeah, we need another example.
So it evolves, with the time, then yes, then that will be existence.
But right now it doesn't
It
exist.
doesn't exist,
So it's an appearing object of the mind.
Yes.
So, but it's transient in your mind, so is it impermanent then? Because
But
of
it's not
those
a product.
states?
It's an image, it's an image, it's a meaning generality. So you have, if you imagine that, and so, if the rabbit has horn, it will look like that. So that image can be in your mind, yeah. So you can have the image of that,
Yeah, yeah,
but it's not real.
yeah.
So that image will be permanent.
So sitting and walking, Nicholas, are examples of non-associating compositional factors?
Yes.
Is it because they're not matter and they're not consciousness?
That's right, but it's a thing, right?
It's a thing?
Yes.
Okay.
So would that image be considered part of consciousness then? Because you're actually using your consciousness to create that image.
Yes. 된시도 되는 시험을 해서.
대주도 심하면 대주 따버렸다.
But it will not be a consciousness. So that image will not be a consciousness.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So it's just a similar appearance. It's not a real appearance. It's a similar appearance of that. If it's a real appearance, then it has to be there, right?
Yeah.
It's not real. It's a similar.
대마이보다 대놈이 나와려 싶어. 나와셔죠. 대가지 대주 따버려요.
So it's not real there. It's just an image of that. A similar appearance of that, and therefore it is called. Therefore it is permanent.
Well, just to clarify that permanent doesn't mean things can't come in and out of existence. It just means that they don't change moment to moment. Is that correct? Because it can be some confusion like, well, it's transient.
That's right.
It comes and goes, so how can it be permanent? So it's just
답답해
that,
나고 답답해지 이해버거서 이해버다 내가 잘 쓰였어. 또 전진이 이해버서요. 이해버지 내가 잘 쓰였어.
그래 여명처럼 해나야. 이제 깨는 참 말이스. 와. 양고 땡땡하고 저러고 이러고.
Yes, that's true. So you can come to existence, you can come and it can disappear, but it's not something that come into existence by dependent cause and condition. So then that would be impermanent thing.
그러나 범바차 거기도 차는 깝당 동안이 매로 올라왔어. 대차도 굳이 정면서 말았어. 깝매가 콘때 대다 깝매가 뒤 동안이 매서 올라왔어.
So for example, like the emptiness inside the cup, the emptiness of the cup, right? Or emptiness of the cup. The cup that is empty exists from its own side. That aspect of the cup is there as long as the cup is there, right? If the cup is not there, there will not be emptiness of the cup. And so that when the cup is broken, and turned into dust, and there's no more emptiness of cup, right? There's no cup, so there will be no emptiness of cup. But the emptiness of the cup itself, it's permanent. So what happened to that? It disappeared, right? It became non-existent. Because the reason why it's not there any longer is because the basis for that emptiness is no longer there.
대단 강소 이거는 아니 전제 대주도 때렸다 대주니 일하고 거서 나중에. 저도 대주 차버렸어.
And so usually, when we talk about interdependence, so there's interdependence upon cause and condition, and that's another interdependent is the dependent upon imputations and so forth. So because it's such a code, therefore it became like that. So it depends on that imputation.
저도 깨라더니 지금은 못 따봐서.
So that which disintegrates by depending cause and condition is impermanent.
대한 지혜도나 깨지지 제대로 더 반지지 제대로 되겠어. 저 가지 야 지지 저 가지 못 되게 말했어.
And so the cause that causes its disintegration, it is the cause that causes it to be produced also. So it's the same cause that causes both production and the destruction, and it's not something different from the productions.
그냥 메도로나 코란 단다 계획 제가 깨는 니바 그런 놈 양분들 아니 그다 그런 줄로 묘사로 아니 대 니바도 야 깨지도 그 니바는 양 그들로나 아니 메도도 마다 묘사로
So it is that potential of that seed, right, of the flower, which gave birth to the flower, and it's that very potential. When that disintegrates, then the flower also withers, or dies, and so forth, right? So it's the very potential which gave the rise to the flower. It's that very potential when that decreases, then the flower dies. So it's the same cause for both for the flower to grow and the flower to die.
그냥 메토드에 따져 선대한테 고란 것이 단 예능지 다 렌지시에 사다 쳐다 줘도 관계 공연도 선대로 왔어. 다 도전 니바 냥 그런 저거나 아니 메토드 고 필요 없어. 선대도 되게 많이 해도 되게.
And so what brought up the flower, is all these different conditions, right? The soil, the water, the fertilizer, moisture, all these things. And then it's a very those things that causes the flower to die. So when those things decrease, flower dies. When those things increase, flower comes out. So that's the very thing that causes the flower to grow and the flower to die also.
Okay.
Yeah.
So just to go back to the rabbit horns again, sorry. So it didn't just, it's dependent on causes and conditions, which are sort of other thoughts and a sequence of thoughts and conversations that cause that thought to arise, image to arise. So from that perspective, there are other sort of mental conditions that were causing that to arise. So in that case, wouldn't it be?
Yeah. 더 던지대 샤워 쳐야 된 로션도 그 지어라서 미치기다 어디 라바송서 나다 레봉을 라이는 근데 그래서 미지 라벤도 디케 지내들 그 던지대 샤워라서 던지대 나와더라 거기 때 가서 거기 나와디 이거라서 나와디는 다 가서 때는 그 코아된 저도 걔네들 이거라서 뒤에는 나와디들 미다버 그래서
나와디 지금 뭐가 나빠지는 거 나와서 대나무 나와디 그럼 그 샤비 차는 거지 나나도 지금 라존도 올라와서 대 따발 때에 시다 그 영화 가지는 가지다 너 지금 대주는 때가 와서 지금 나가고 지금 시작하고 konsantre kaji nawa de ta tabar nawa kora tabainda 그 대중이 나와서 tabar kaji tabar 나야
tabar 나 샤워서 그래서 나
또배 나야다 tabar 대중이 필요해 왔어 근데 로라도 또 봐.
되더라. 또배나는 tabar 거 괜찮았어. 근데 디셔 봐 말이야. 배잖아. 또배나는 tabar 거랬을 때 나는 다시 딱 그냥 지금 말하더라.
다 나에서 돼 그래. 나이 차시. 샤비 차시라고 그래서. 나나를 때문에 말이 왔어. 난 알아서 뭐지 지금 나와야 나나를 때문에 말이 왔어. 난 알아서 최고나 샤리야 그래서 지금 이러나 대형도 말이 왔어.
말아 되나다 되게 답변이 나왔어. 답변이 진짜 나왔어.
샤카다 예완 말씀 모르겠다. 예완을 인공을 들으려 왔어. 내가 내가 또 배나이지.
되더라. 내가 보더라도 유재지 쉬고 왔다. 그래서 이번에 뭐만 때려 답변을 되더라. 되더라. 가지다 나의 답변이 답변에서 집발까지 답변이 나의도 답변이 아니 세미여 답변에서 집발 왔어. 그 가지는 나 여행 주지 매어 가래. 여행에서 아니 답변 그걸 같이 바로 와. 내가 요 답변이 있어야 집발 왔어. 근데 세미여 답변이 있어. 이 답변이 강사의 답변이 있어. 스타일 맞니? Usually, because it's the appearing object, of the conceptual mind, it's not a valid mind, right? It's not a non-conceptual mind, but it's a conceptual mind, the mind that conceptualizes that certain thing. So it is an appearing object of conceptual mind, and so whatever is the appearing object of a conceptual mind has to be prominent. Last time we talked about that also before. When we talked about the object in the part one, it says whatever is an established base is necessarily an appearing object. And this is because whatever is a thing is necessarily the appearing object of direct perceiver. Whatever is a thing is the object of an direct perceiver, and whatever is a prominent is necessarily the appearing object of conceptual consciousness. So whatever is an appearing object of conceptual consciousness, it is prominent. And so the mental image of that the horn on rabbit's head, is appearing object of a conceptual mind. Therefore, it is prominent. So that's the reason we can follow. And it is similar to the concept that object is prominent. The object is prominent, but if it's an object, it's not necessarily to be prominent, but object is prominent.
근데 세미여 답변이 있어. 시전에 세미여. 시당이 답변 세미여 답변이 있어. 세마에는 그게 답변 좀 맞아서.
The object of the value cognizer is also permanent. But if it's an object of value cognizer, it is not necessarily permanent. Similar to that. The object of value cognizer is permanent, but if it's an object of value cognizer, it is not necessarily permanent.
근데 다 예와이나 두지 본거, 조회 본거, 두지 본거, 나가시 본거 다 대선도 나한테 느려. 대선 마디기 다 이보시 샤이라고 말했어.
So if it is a functioning thing, then it has to be either of those three things: matter, non-associated constant factor, and or consciousness, right? So there isn't any functioning thing that is not included in any of these three things. And so that which is neither matter nor consciousness, a constant factor that is neither matter nor consciousness is the definition of non-associated constant factor. So the going, walking or going, is not consciousness, right? It's not matter, right? It's not a form of matter, right? But it's a thing, right? So it's a condition, a functioning thing, or it's a component thing, and so therefore it has to be non-associated constant factor. What about the book? That book? What is it? It is a thing?
Matter.
It's matter, right?
Sure.
And what is that? What about the impermanent aspect of the book?
It's not matter.
The impermanent book is what? It's not consciousness either, right? So therefore it is
Non-associated
non-associated
composition.
factor. So yeah, if you don't think about it, then it seems like difficult to find the example. But if you think about it, then they are full of them, right?
Yeah.
So if it is mobile, you right? Mobile. So all the component, all the impermanent things, right? All the functional things are included in these 5 aggregates. Really? So if you understand about the 5 aggregates, then that will help to reduce your mental afflictions, and then help you to understand how you enter and how you exit of psychiatric state. So now let's go to the page 13, where it says, talks about the value cognizer. So what is the definition of value cognizer? A new, incontrovertible knower, right? It says there is a necessity for expressing the three, a new, incontrovertible, and knower. Right? That's the part of the definition of value cognizer, because new, so it has to be new, right? It has to be new. It's not something that you cognize after many times. It has to be like the first time. And it has to be incontrovertible. And it has to be also a knower for it to be very cognized, right? And so it says here that the new eliminates that subsequent cognizers are value cognizers. So the subsequent cognizer is that which cognizes again later, right? So first you cognize, first time when you cognize it, it is a valid cognizer. But then the second moment or third moment of that, will become a subsequent cognizer.
주로 담보 주도를 깔았다 주도 통해서 말아 대략 테마스 대신이 지나가다 제시에 딱 맞도록 하는 도둑이고.
So first, when you first come into the center, the very first time when you came to the center, you saw the things, that is your valid cognizer. And then after that, you come second time, third time, you see the same thing again. And so you are seeing what you have already seen before, cognizing what you have already cognized before, so that's no longer valid cognizing.
근데 제시에 대해 다 물어줘야 돼. 그 물어봐야 돼요. 또 물어봐.
So it's a subsequent cognizer, so what you're seeing, the statue in Santo Compa, what is real, is true, it's incontrovertible, so it is true, just as you have seen it, and but you are seeing it again, although you are seeing it again, but it's still true. Therefore, the subsequent cognizer is incontrovertible.
근데 이제 빠르는 was.
And it is also a knower, right? You're knowing it again, so it's knower. Therefore, the only thing that prevents it from being valid cognizer is the new.
그래서 대니가 나왔다 가르마 코를 내가 싸듯 말해 was. 대니 시간이 참여를 해서.
So other than that, it has all the definition, all part of the definition of valid cognizer. So only part that's missing for subsequent cognizer is the new.
뭐지? 다 물어봐지면 이쪽에서 맞지.
And then incontrovertible eliminates that correctly assuming consciousness are valid cognizers.
근데 이쪽에서 해야 돼. 다 나도 지금 삼도 지금 옛날에 삼도면 너 그런 거 가지고 나이 또요 말이나 됐어. 왜 삼삼도 이러고. 라이나 레베시. 아니 이쪽에서 있까지. 그래도 돼서 또 매도 더 말했어.
So then correctly assuming consciousness are controvertible. So it assumes, it's just like, it's not like, it doesn't know exactly this, but it just assumes, it must be like this, must be like that. So that kind of consciousness, is called correctly assuming consciousness. And so because it is controvertible, it's not incontrovertible, so therefore it's not a valid cognizer.
그래갖고 싸차를 가지고 딱 담보지 시작할 때까지 다 되라고 그러죠. 담보지 가서 삼당.
So first when you assume it, for the first time when you assume it, it is new, right? And therefore it is a new, and you're assuming, you're cognizing it, with your assumption, but therefore it is knower.
다 일반으로 왔어.
And so this knower, it knows the object, right?
이날 다 혀를 좀 보고 말해 왔어.
And so, but because it is not incontrovertible,
그래가 되니까 이해가 다시 말해 왔어.
so therefore it is not a valid cognizer because it only meets the two parts of the out of three, it meets only two parts of the definition.
다시 라인 또요 말해. 그거 지금 선샤되어 놨어.
또요. 시교.
시교 말해. 이제 사고서 라인 혀로.
리버라.
리버. 다 싸서다 거 담보에서 거 사와는 거죠. 담보 삼. 또요 말해.
이제 또 그런 똑같은 그런 것들이 이러시고.
지긴다고 그러죠. 그냥 혀대요. 그 싸움이 면서 혀로.
Yeah, so it is knower, it knows, it can know for the first time, but because it is not incontrovertible, and therefore that is not valid cognizer.
그래서 같이 라인을 혀와, 그냥 또 말해서 들이다 다 혀와 들이었고.
So it is, it's kind of mistaken, to this object.
그래서 제만은 물어가고 그래서.
And so if it is valid cognizer, then it has to be incontrovertible. To be unmistaken.
다 리바지면 무슨 말씀하지?
And so it says the knower eliminates the physical sense of powers are valid cognizers.
무슨 치바서야 돼? 다 싸워를 물어버려야 돼. 이나양 시방을 해서.
So the physical sense and the powers are incontrovertible, but it's not knower.
무슨 치바지도 가르쳐.
So what would be a physical sense power?
시방 많이 싸워 동대지 그래.
The organs, the sense organs.
Huh?
The physical sense power.
그래서 옹시도 있었어. 옹보도 있었어.
옹보. 다 옹보 생각하고 내가 옹보 나이 옹보 생각하고 옹보가에 왔어. 옹보가.
So there are 5 sense powers, right? 5 sense powers.
오명한테 이래 가르쳐줘. 죄송하고 가르쳐줘 그래.
So how do they engage in the object? The 5 sense powers, how do they engage in this object, in their object?
저절로 방어를 이랬어. 얘를 담아주고, 입아주고, 숨아주고, 육당 치워야 이랬어. 얘를 힘을주고, 투두주고.
And so there is the sequence, the order in which they engage in the object, and how the duration of their engagement in the object.
그리고 당분간도 미국 통과를 했어. 미국 다 리모트고 그래. 아무튼 되는지 통통 말했어. 그거 말했어. 당분 미국 대다 장을 쉬고 그랬어. 미국 장을 못 통과를 했어. 당분간도 미국 쉬고 그랬어.
And so, among these 5 sense powers, the physical sense powers, the one that sees the furthest is the eye organ, eye sense power.
아니 암주야 데레타 시다타리만 되나 미국 통과는 이제 통과는 다들 또 투두고 그래. 육도고 했어.
And then the ear sense power, is the second. And it can hear the sound at quite a distance, but it will not be as far as the eye can see.
나서야 다 데레타 이해할 거야 주고 그래서
And then the smell, the nose consciousness, the nose sense power is even closer.
나도 나 누마를 주마고 나 두고 못 가서 나도 대소리고 두고 거기 가서.
And so to sense the smell, you don't have to touch it. You can even if it's at quite a distance, you can still smell the things, right?
아니 제시가 다 지금 진짜 그러나 두고 그랬어. 제시들 시니까.
And for the tongue, consciousness and tongue, sense power and the body sense power, you have to touch the object.
답에는 다 옹보수 집마다 가와야 되네. 무시 옹보수 집마다 가와야 가르치 무슨 그래서 나서.
So the eye sense power, what is the eye sense power? Which one is the eye sense power? What would be the eye sense power?
가지 시바 말에 수업을 했어. 이나양 다 이제 다 싸우고 싶나 그래. 샤도로.
Function of the organ of the eye.
The eyeball.
The eyeball?
Because you could have an eyeball that's not functioning.
It's not a knower. It can be new, it can be incontrovertible.
Because it's not a knower.
단나가도 도대 잘해도 내가 못해 고봐서요. 못해 고봐. 니나라 니나라에 낙보 주주지. 가지 설명 매도 따라서지. 아니 다 시간을 매도 말을 해서 쓰고 싶대. 매도를 이래서. 니나라 낙보 수코나데 샤인 니바이세요.
So what do you call that? That black part? Pupil.
Pupil.
So inside the pupil, there's another black part. And then inside there's
There's nerves in the back of the eye.
the mirror, like the glass, in the center of the pupil.
가지 세고 못하고 오늘 가서 쑥 샤워를 왔어. 샤워를 왔어. 대샤워는 가서 시베에 가서 정말 또 왔어. 대샤워는 다 대토 시바를 뭐 했게 왔어.
What is?
세고나 동바 샤워를 때네 세고나 동바 토피 무시를 하게 왔어. 대나지 쑥 대단다 공부 집바다가 샤워를 때네 아니 쑥 대토피 무시게 왔어.
So just like when you're looking at in the mirror, because you appear in the mirror, therefore you can see yourself in the mirror. Right? Therefore you have that you have the consciousness in seeing yourself, right, your face. And so just like that, all these objects appear in that the glass in the center of the eye pupil, and therefore because it appears there, therefore you can cognize that object. Because if it doesn't appear there, you will not be able to see it. So if something is damaged, if there's a damage in that part of the eye, then we cannot see the things. And so that is the uncommon condition of the eye consciousness. So the eye consciousness, then when you see it, it's the eye consciousness which sees it, right? But it appears into that glass, inside a mirror, like a mirror and a glass inside the eye pupil, and therefore you're able to see it. And so that becomes the unique condition for your being able to see the object. So because the objects, just as you see it, it appears there, so therefore it is incontrovertible. So it has to appear there. If it doesn't appear there, then you will not be able to generate another eye consciousness in seeing the object. So when you close your eyes and then you think of your friend next to you, that's a mental consciousness, right? It's not eye consciousness. And so the object and the subject, object and the mind, or the eye consciousness in seeing the object has to meet, right? So what is it? What makes it meet, these two meet? Is the physical sense, but the eye sense power. And so the eye sense power of the eye sense power. And so it's only not the knower, otherwise it is new, it can be incontrovertible, and so therefore the only reason it's not valid cognizer is because it's not knower. So the ear consciousness of the ear sense power, what is the ear sense power? What the scientists say? Eardrum. So there is the eardrum, right? The sound hits the eardrum, and then that causes you to hear it. If it doesn't touch, so what does it look like? The eardrum. Well, in the text, they say it's explains like with the many layers. Like when you cut a wood, it has many like round layers like that. So the eardrum is like that, similar to like that. And then when the sound goes there, goes to hit there, to touch that, then from there you can. If the eardrum is not there, you will not hear. So if the eardrum is damaged, or if something's wrong with that, then you will not be able to hear. Then that's how you go deaf, right? What about the nose sense power? With the sense power, no sense power.
What the sense say?
Is there something like a eardrum inside the nose?
It must be nerves, nerve endings. I don't know how that works.
Olfactory nerve.
Yeah, different nerves.
Then now book the yours. And then come in the shoe shall not yours. Come then now book the yours.
So there is a nerve. So it's the nerve inside the nose. It looks like needles, like two needles pointing out inside the nose. It's the nerve. So then those nerves, then they can experience the smells. So it's the particular nerve that helps one to experience the smell. And the eye cannot see the smell, and the ear cannot hear the smell. So that's the condition, the main and uncommon condition for giving rise to the smell. What about the tongue?
Different to scientists.
They say taste buds.
Taste buds.
Where
Where is it? Which part of the tongue is it? Is it back? Is it front?
There are different locations in the tongue.
All of it, actually.
It's
Yeah,
also
well,
the different taste.
It's not just the
Yeah,
register at different
There are
parts.
different parts of the tongue that are more sensitive to sour. There are different parts of the
Right.
tongue that are more sensitive to
Possessor.
bitter or to-
It's
It's nerves again.
taste buds by themselves don't taste.
that are reactive to chemical changes.
So according to the text, it says in the edge of the the tip of the tongues, so like the crescent and in the shape of a crescent moon, so that goes around the tongue and the front part of the tongue.
대체는 아니 약해야 통해서 아니 다 좋은 거 그래. 약해 두고.
Yes.
약해 너 약해 두고 그래. 내가 그냥 좋은 거.
칼라로 돈 비워 봐.
네. 제가 다 되고 지로. 제가 다 줘. 칼로 두고. 두지. 아니 대왕 약해나 봐도 다 두들맞이 좋은 거.
And it says that the tip of the tongue has to touch the upper palate. Is it true?
Yeah.
It has to touch the upper palate to experience the taste. If you don't touch it, if you put the food just on the tongue, you don't experience it. You have to touch the upper palate.
대마이 계산을 하고 누구들이 제일 맞아요.
I had no idea.
니가야
We can experiment.
시리샤잖아. 좋아지는 거 같어.
So if you put a candy on top of your tongue, you will not taste it. You will not experience the taste of the candy. So you have to touch the upper palate. Did you know that?
Experiment.
Actually,
Actually,
the Chinese are very sensitive for tasting smell, really, mostly.
Huh?
Most of what we think of as taste is smell.
That's true.
There's only
Taste the smell?
there's only four basic tastes: salty, sour.
So the sweet, like the sweetness of the candy.
Bitter.
If you just put it on the tongue, it will not be tasted.
Sometimes they say if we can't smell something, we also can't taste. Like if we hold our breath and taste something, it's hard to
Or we have a
can't
cold.
really taste it.
Yeah.
That's
Oh,
true.
it gets diminished.
It's called it don't take.
그거는 지금 뒤만 많으나 좀 전혀 말했어. 가셔라나. 저 나부까지라. 나부까지 내가 저런 the 전혀 말했어.
이거 책 알아봐. 근데 이세 그만큼 빼져나가는 뇌는 들어서 말이야. 여기 있는 거 봐. 간제 좋아대 쟤네 돌아요 말했어. 매우지들은 쟤네 두장 네가 시리라고 사가려나 좋냐고 말했어. 다 제거샤 안 쟤네 봐요. 약해야 두어서 아니 그 좋냐고 그랬까지.
Yeah, so that's what is said in the text, in the Buddhist text, which is based on the Abhidhamma by Vasubandhu. So in that, it explains about the phenomenologies and how the things exist. And so according to that text, it says that the taste bud is on the edge of in the front of in the tip of the tongue. And when you place the thing like a sugar or salt on the tongue itself, you will not experience it. Then you move the tongue, and then when you touch the upper palate, then you experience, then you will be able to taste it.
야, 근데 간절히 나도 좋아지라. 그러고 좋아서 하지 다 하고 매서 나도 저기 하고 매서.
So I'm not sure about that, not smelling and not tasting part. You can tell.
근데 자사를 주마요. 자사를. 사모는 자는 주마. 주마 그래 먹었어. 영어로. 내가 그때 최대로 먹었어.
So like the salty, like all the sweet tea.
Yeah.
Can you smell the sweet tea? You can smell?
Really?
Is there a smell of sweet tea?
I smell it cooking.
Tea,
Yeah.
I smell it when it's cooking.
the tea has a quality of
So you can smell the tea, but not the
No.
sweet itself, right? But you can taste the sweet.
Yeah, you can't smell the sweet.
Yeah, you can't smell the sweet.
Right.
근데 이제 처음에는 좋아해봤을 때 간이 알아. You can check.
But if you have a cold, you don't taste things as well.
Because if you have a cold, you don't taste.
And your nose is well, you don't taste as well.
Those sense powers seem to be closely
아, 이게
associated
제시라.
more.
되게
Yeah.
I think so.
땡기세요.
It may affect,
Yeah.
but it's not totally dependent.
Oh, no, it's not.
Yeah, right.
Totally.
Yeah, it may affect, yeah.
Yeah.
That affects, many things can affect. Even the weather can affect.
Yeah.
식당 시차야 돼. 식당으로 가는 양이 자자자 건강을 못하. 식당으로 가는 거거든요.
Temperature.
Yeah, in general, in general that's how it is. But but if you go into particular details, then it can be different. Right?
Cooks would say you eat first with your eyes, so. Because it
이제
doesn't look
대비
good.
만수 대형을 양 단다. 수주 보고 처음 지금 같은데 양 만수 얘가 차박을 찍어서 내려와. 너무 먹은 통을 했어. 근데 토요가 나도 야고도 사고 그랬어. 아니 니시래 띵가 모두도 주무더라 그랬어. 아니 내제래네 내 야도 사고 그랬어. 나머지에게 아니 가르쳐 맞아서 뒤다 양을 했어. 양을 대주시 그랬어.
So when you talk about the five aggregates, you can apply that to how your mind generates an attachment to something. So first you see, so that will be the form, right? You see it, and then after you see it, then it says, oh, you want to feel it. It says, oh, I want to, it looks really beautiful. I want to feel it, and then after you feel it, then you have the discrimination. So, oh, it feels good, it feels bad, and so forth. And then with that feeling, with that discrimination of feeling good or bad, then you act in what do you call that, volition. So that is like the action, getting into action. So that's the compositional factor. And then after that, whatever action you have engaged in through that, and then you leave the imprint in your consciousness. So that's how the aggregate, the form, the feeling, discrimination, compositional factor, and consciousness. So that's how they follow. In terms of how you generate attachment to something, first you see it, then you want to feel it. Then after feeling it, you discriminate it, good and bad, and then you engage in action according to that. And engage to do something, right? So you feel good. This is also you attach. You do something good. You don't like it. You say, oh, bad. You hate it, and then you engage in action. Then whatever action you have created from that, the imprint of that is left in the consciousness.
어다다 들리지까지 오모가 들으시다 소소카카 지내로 만나게 해서.
So anyway, so those the sense. So we're talking about the sense powers. And those have different functions like that, right? And each are different. Anyway, so those are not normal consciousnesses.
두치네 가든가 오봉에 넣다도 야구리 시바이나 우리가 나도 충분히 생각했다.
So if you understand about these five sense powers, then you will also have less grasping at the self as exists from its one side.
먼저 미근 통화에다 통화로 나하고 통화를 해주는 정도가.
And because we see it, therefore it says I see it. I, the person, the I see it, right?
근데 I smart, I eat. 어다들이 답변들이다. 그래서 지금 쇼지된 내가 쇼지된 나한테야지. 냠내 내 몸보기 열세.
So the I comes from come from that, right? So that's grasping of ego. That's the ego grasping. Because of those things, the I see it, I smell it, I taste it, I touch it, and so forth. So if you understand well about that, then there will be less, grasping at the ego.
아니, 죽세야띵 초회를 떼야 되겠어. 초와세야띵 아주 칼라로 싸고 눈을 해야 되겠어.
So this is the form, is the basis for feeling, and then feeling is like the container to put food and so forth.
아니 드시세야돼 칼라를 사도 지금 딱 좋아하는 거, 좋아하는 맛이 와. 지금 말해. 드시 거다 약다 그래서.
And the discrimination is like the salt, or pepper and so forth in the food. Which brings the taste. So it's a good taste or a bad taste.
근데 드시세야돼 아니 칼로리가 지금 말해. 딱 칼라요 딱 맞아요. 누구 잘 와서 그래서.
And then the composition factor is like the server, the person who serves the food.
근데 나머지 받으면 딱 건강 영양으로 딱 저어요. 나머지 공부 있는 것이 와서.
So then the consciousness is like the person who experiences it.
어따다 대소 효의 인내가 부모의 라위에서 해드리고 같이 도전하고 세고 열로.
So anyway, was about to explain about these five areas in this text.
이제 맞다. 효의 인내가 시당한 거 지금 중앙도 중앙에 사체 매일 두고 그렇다 뭐라 그러고.
So Vasubandha has actually explained about all these the elements, like the earth, the fire, water, and so forth.
근데 또 쇼지를 맞았다. 지금 걸라 딱 배서 쇠쇼대 딱 여기 인내해서요. 다 리저버 러스지 요소하네요. 다 대상으로 도움을 주세요. 제가 개념을 말아서.
So this is in the Abhidhamma Kosha. That's the text, that explains all the phenomena about the physics and so forth, clearly in Buddhist text. But then also in this text it explains about the Mount Meru. But nowadays, people find it difficult to believe in Mount Meru because they don't see it, so therefore it's difficult to believe in it.
Anyway, it's okay. 다 주로 재미가 되니라 손나 술 말하고 숨게 들어가 하고서 와서.
So you understand all these three different part of those that definition, right? The recognizers.
아니 공부서 지마서 돼. 아니 다 시바 말하면서 이제 다 싸워도 네 가르는 거니까 잘해.
So physical sense power is not no, otherwise it can be new, it can be also incontrovertible, right?
원시 대답대 제와시비가 아니 통용을 다지 다 수치 당하신 거래서 당하라 그래서.
So it is it is like the uncommon condition, and that gives rise to such and such sense consciousnesses.
근데 수치 당하도 쪼셔나 다 무시되게 깨요 말이야.
And so that sense, that physical sense power, if that is damaged, then the sense consciousness will not arise from there.
다 들으려고 다 들으신 것이 또 왔다고 그럴까.
Yeah, so we'll stop here for today.
Maybe one caution. Maybe caution boss. You call him caution boss.
Hey Geshe, when you talked about the valid cognizer, the first moment that when it's new to the consciousness, the first moment is valid, and then the following moments are subsequent cognizers, so they're not valid cognizers. The term valid throws me off a little bit, because what about, for example, if like the first moment that a hungry ghost sees something, like a statue, is that first moment that they see is that considered a valid cognizer?
Yes, it is valid cognizer. So it's not only for special beings. So any kind of beings, when they see something that is incontrovertible and sees with their mind and is seen for the first time, then it is a valid cognizer.
So would it appear the same exact way to me as it would to a being of a completely different realm, like with a completely different karma and everything? It would.
다 고난도 가르통하는 가족에 집어 통보해버렸어. 통화에다 집어버렸어. 다 고난에 나라에서 그걸 쉽게 시켰어요. 먼저 주 통화에 이다도 나라 통화. 타게 된 뜻을 통보라. 디스고서 고난에서. 다 밀어와에다 그 통보 집어다.
소소소님을 봐자고 나한테 그러고 봐줘야
밀어와를 해야 됐어. 밀어와를 해서.
아니 저 이미지는 뭐라고 말했어요. 제가 그
고난 다 통보라.
저 동화는 뭐라고 말해? 그건 동화는 뭐라고 말해?
거기다 다 통보라.
저 동화 그건 뭐라고 말했어? 그걸 러시아로 말해.
거기 가는 통보라.
그걸 러시아로 나왔어.
거기 통화도 다.
그 동화 저한테 다 그걸 러시아로 나왔어. 원래 고쳐야겠다.
원래 이제 통화야 말이야. 야.
그래.
그런 조수 통화야.
된 통화해야 돼. 그런 통화해야 돼. 시다는 통화해야 돼. 야, 카카잖아. 시다는 통화 그래도 강하게 또 걸어.
Yeah. So of course, when they see something that is not because of their karmic imprint, karmic imprint, yeah. So they have this karmic imprint which makes them to see regular water as a blood or pus. So that of course is not. It will not. That mind which sees that will not be a valid cognizer. But for them, like they see the table as a table, that help their mind which sees the table as a table. Yeah. And then when they see table as a table, then that's incontrovertible. It's not. Then it's a valid cognizer. So, 만족이 시바대, 나 통화도 비 말아라. 내가 만족 통화 못 통화.
말하지 마라.
So like because you're wearing blue lens glasses, if you see the white mountain as a blue, that's not a valid cognizer also. Even though you're seeing it for the first time, you're seeing it blue, but you're seeing you're seeing it with your eye consciousness, which is normal, right? And therefore it has to be valid cognizer. No, it's not necessary because it is not incontrovertible. The blue is not the real.
So what I mean by that's a little bit that throws me off is like, so if they see a river as pus, for example, for the first time, it's
that will not be a valid cognizer.
But if they see it as a river, it's a valid.
Yes.
But that's what I mean is like, so in reality,
in reality, it's river.
It just seems like a human convention if we just say it's a river in reality. Because it could be many different things appearing to many different beings. if we say river, it just seems limited to just human, what we impute it to be.
Yes.
That's why it's hard for me to say it's valid universally. It would only seem valid to me, valid to a human being to say it's a river.
가서다 이달라 테마이나 또 미라 테마이고 말았어. 미라 테마이나 이달라 테마이고 말았어. 그래서 다 추디 정부 추디라서 추디다 이달 미라 테마에서 맞지. 이달다 디테일 말았어. 이달 가서 거기 추통도 말았어. 거기다 거기 나가서 말았어. 거기 나가려 해야 돼. 거기에 되니까 미게 되네. 추가.
대행은 저를 다 sem상하려고 하는 소소소 단위를 조회로 왔어. 그게 소소소 쉐도로 이제 코리아 많이 하고 있는 거 봤어. 정말 대체는 저를 때래. 그렇지만 너무 잘 먹는 거 봤어.
네. 제마스도 가르쳐 왔어.
생각은 다 소소
술을 따다니는 거.
시 자리 많이 봐야 되죠. 식당제. 가서 개개가 가가지고.
So yeah, you're right. You can say that which is valid to you, might not be valid to the others, but that is on the individual basis. But in general, so you can say, oh, in general, it's a table, and you see it's a table. Of course, you might know something else in different language, but doesn't mean it's not table. It's still table. It's just a different name or different thing, a different term used for this thing. It's not a table, but it's a table. In the concept or the idea of the table is there. The name might be different, like that. And so because of your karmic imprints, you might see different things, like the water, is seen as a pulse of blood, by the herbivores and so forth. So that's different, in individual basis. But in general, if the water, if you see the water as a water, then that's valid cognizer.
And then the only reason why because then, for example, a being like in a god realm who has more pure karma, they might see it as nectar.
Yes.
And then they could say, we don't have a valid cognizer because we see it as an ordinary river, and they see it as a nectar, so they might say that our cognizers are not valid, and that theirs is valid.
그러다 저 나무는 쇼에다 그런 데들에 되는 거 같아요. 나도 최에다 나도 최 말하고 그랬어. 단 얘다 그런 나타나는데 그런 나타나는 거 그런
Or you can, in that case also you can say that, because they see as a nectar, and then when they drink it, they experience the nectar. And for them it is incontrovertible, right? And when we see it as a water. When we drink it, we experience the water. And then the herbivores, when they see it as a blood and pus, and when they drink it, it tastes like blood and pus. So for them, it is incontrovertible.
So
if you go by recognizing it in that way, then you will have to say different, for different beings.
So overall, when we say valid, it's just relative. It's
relative.
It's not absolute.
That's right. Yeah.
That's what makes a little more sense to me.
Is the term new relative? So does the term new, like if does the river exist on its own in its own way? So when the hungry goes, the god, the human sees it. They see it, but then their karma and their mentality immediately labels it, immediately changes how they perceive it. Is that what's meant by new?
Oh, the new, no. The soul is 다 못하더라.
다 못하겠다. 가다 주는 담을 떼고 담고식 다 못하겠다.
So no, it means like seeing it for the first time.
Only.
Only. Yeah.
Doesn't mean prior to being labeled.
No.
Prior to being
No, not that.
sexualized.
Yeah. So you come into this, into this temple, and then you see this new statue. So the first time when you see that, that's new. Then after that, next day.
That's not my understanding.
Okay.
My understanding is that it's new, it's fresh, like my eye sense consciousness. I have direct perception when I see that statue. And then the next moment, it's a subsequent cognizer.
Yes.
Tomorrow I walk in a room, I see the statue. My first moment is a direct sense perception. And after that, it's a subsequent cognizer. It's not that I see it once and then anytime I see it after that, it's subsequent.
나 그런 게 있으나 나 몰라서는 너 제마스는 너 계사직 도사 될 도도네 나 그거 내 맞으시는 제마 말했어 보라 내 제마 뭐시나 제마 말했어 계사 또 당못 도도는 당못 제마 말했어 한 되게 개진이 말했다 제시 잘해 버렸어 다 드림 도도는 당못 당못이 안돼 제마 말했어 되게 그 니말에 제시했어
근데 가다도 기지 당고 둘이 상하려 봐. 이마도 이마 싸워줘요. 그 이마도 싸워려 봐. 이마도 상하려. 저 기지 당고는 이마 싸워줘요. 근데 이마도 오기도 곧 상하려.
In that case, then you'll have to say the second moment, that you see it. You haven't seen that in the first moment. The second moment, you haven't seen that before, right? Second moment happened afterwards. You haven't seen that before, so you're seeing that for the first time. Second moment of that is the first time. And then you have to say that is also new. That will also become a valid cognizer. And so there will be no subsequent, because every moment is new, right? Because that didn't exist before. You're seeing it for the first time. Even if it became second moment, but second moment was seen for the first time.
But every time you see it, you're seeing it freshly, newly.
So no, if it makes sense. When you said that, it makes sense. Yesterday's statue is no longer there. Today's statue is new.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But of that,
그러면 그 태석이 군다디 직사. 린 군다디 싸워라. 싸워서 싸도록 했어.
던지는 사도 대라 사도라고 말씀. 대라는 저랑 계속 담보 이바들 담보 지사로. 이바 싸우더라고. 그래서 대고 사도라고 돼. 고스를 잡는
So yeah, just like you see that fresh today, yesterday's statue is no longer there. It's perished already. Yes, perished is gone by, right? Today's statue, you didn't see it before. Today is fresh. Even though it's the same continuum of the statue, but you are seeing it for the first time. So if that is the case, then also same with the second moment. Second moment, you haven't seen it before, right?
but
The first moment is gone. Second moment, you haven't seen before. So second moment is also new. And then in the third moment, you haven't seen that before. That's also new.
But it
So
seems,
it's the same.
Yeah, it seems more like some mind moments are happening here. I'm having an observation of this.
Yes.
The first mind moment is a direct perception, and then the subsequent mind moments, as I continue to look at the statue, are subsequent.
Mm-hmm. But then when you take your mind away from there, you're thinking
And
about
then-
something, doing something.
Yeah, and then the flower, I have a direct perception, then the next moment, it's a subsequent.
Yeah.
Then I look at this, then I go back to here, and
It's
the
a fresh
first
again.
moment is fresh,
Oh, okay.
and after that is subsequent.
다 뭐지나 찍고 왔다. 앞에 그 제로라, 그 제로 담보되라 사도로 했어. 근데 그 제일 신경을 내는 기준이 받아. 근데 제시 차트. 근데 그 자리에다 터져다 매도 통도라. 매도 통에 미셔 담보져라. 이 참말했어. 그 기준이 받으라 그 제시 차트. 야 매도 파스 자네 그냥 그 제도네. 그 싸워져. 이 참말했어요.
다 계시 이바들 지시에 가래. 계시 이바들 가래.
제시.
계시 가래 잡아.
So second moment, so the first moment of what you see is the valid cognizer, right? And then in the second moment, it becomes subsequent cognizer. So the reason why the second moment becomes subsequent cognizer is
계시 이바가 도야기 그지 뭐. 뒤에 가서 계시 동부가 그
The
직사는
definition of a subsequent.
so why is it a subsequent cognizer?
Yeah. I'm just gonna look at the definition of a subsequent. A Noah that realizes what has already been realized.
That's
또
right.
배를 받아야 돼.
So that's the definition which you have already known before, right? So
In
you already
the first moment, right, not a week before.
not the first. No, it doesn't say moment about that. It says in that which you have already cognized before, cognizing which you have already cognized before.
대삼당 대전 손도 봐. 그래 가상이 그 뒤로 다 뒤로 싸우려고 했나? 가상이 지금 뒤로 싸우려고 했어. 계시 이바도 담보는 제대로거든. 지금
So if you think of what you have seen today is fresh, then also you have to follow the same example with the the second moment, because you haven't seen that before. The second moment you are seeing for the first time. It's new, fresh for you. Isn't it true?
지금 가상 가로 산이 저 그때 산이 싸워이나? 아니 계시 이베가 담보진 이베가 그 가르쳐 싸워 맞죠. 다 대를 좀 거.
So what you see, what you saw it yesterday, and you see it today again, and that is fresh. You're saying that, right? You saw it yesterday, and then today you see it again, you are seeing it fresh.
Because it is.
It is, right? So yeah, that's why. So if that is so, then why the second moment is not fresh?
I think we're going back to the same thing over and over, and I don't agree, you know. I think it's...
No, but the question is, why the second moment? Why yesterday's and today's?
Yesterday's fresh is different from today's fresh.
Yeah, but then and also the first moments, and second moment are different, right? The first moments, the perception of the statue is different from the second moment's perception of the statue.
Suggestion.
Okay.
It's good, yeah. Think about it, okay?
So, if, it's just a guess, but if Buddha were looking at it and had omniscience, each moment would be totally different and new, because he would be able to see the change that was happening literally from moment to moment.
Mm-hmm.
And so in that case, you might have every single one be valid cognizer, but because we can't do that, then it's not.
프랑스는 상계기 시도근에 정말들의 제마차고 그랬어. 그치 니바 정말들의 그런 데다 그치 지도 시교죠. 상계 시도는 대체마차고 나도에 통통가 말았어. 그치 지도 통통가 대체다 나도에 대한 제마차고 말았어. That makes sense, right?
Yeah.
For Buddha, everything is a valid cognizer.
Yeah. 보다가 감각하고 이미 제대로 다 걸려야 되겠네요.
So the reason why it is valid cognizer for Buddha is just like what he said.
당 어디까지 계산 통해야 돼. 나도 말 못해. 보여주다 이런 말.
Here's Lati Rinpoche
Yeah.
saying,
무슨 글씨야?
Wait.
a sense-direct subsequent cognizer is, for example, the second moment of a sense-direct perceiver apprehending a form. So every time I walk into this room and I look at that statue, I'm having a sense-direct perceiver. And the second moment of a sense-direct perceiver is a sense-direct subsequent cognizer. I rest my
getting
case.
you what it is. Getting you what it is. 무슨 getting you what 얘들은 제시했어. 무슨 getting you what 담보디 생활했어. 무슨 getting 담보디 생활했어. getting you what 제시했어.
대만 나라. 아무도 이만 것도 하잖아. 시바 대지죠. 고추이 사바에 저렇게 잡아로. 세바데 코너지 잡아.
So yeah, that's true. So when you say the first moment is the valid cognizer, and the second moment is the subsequent cognizer. So and then if you think about what you saw from yesterday and you see it today, how many moments are there? Like 100, 1,000 moments later, right? Then you're seeing it. So then that definitely is a subsequent cognizer. So what you have seen yesterday, and you're seeing it today again. So what you're seeing it in the first moment, and then second moment you keep looking at it, and third moment you keep looking at it, right? You're seeing what you have seen already. You're not seeing something new. You're seeing already. So whether it's the second moment, or whether it's the second day, or whether it's the second, week, you are still seeing the same thing which you have seen before. Therefore, it's a subsequent cognizer. That's what Geshe was saying.
누구랑 당번에 들어가라 기지 동거들 대시바데 세마를 했어. 근데 시바데 땅에 기지니바라 대지 줘서 그랬어.
And that is any 통보는?
산이도 가도 또 돼야 되는 거야. 손들 남는. 제가 대만 기지니 줘라나? 아니 기지니바데 오고 싸워줘.
So so first time when you see the book, that's the valid cognizer. And then in the second moment it becomes a subsequent cognizer. And the next day when you see that book, it's a subsequent cognizer because you're seeing what you have already seen before.
Well, this is what I disagree with, and this is what I think is what Lati Rinpoche is saying, and the second moment after a direct perception, in this case a sense-direct perception, is a subsequent a subsequent cognizer.
Yeah, it has to be
right. And so whether then I leave the room and I come back in, the first moment I see that statue is another sense-direct perception.
Because it's a session.
And then I have a subsequent cognizer.
So
maybe we're not disagreeing. It's just not explained in the same way.
Sorry?
Nothing. Maybe we're not in disagreement,
Uh-huh.
just explaining it a different way.
No, the disagreement here is that, what you have seen yesterday and you see today is Geshe saying that is subsequent cognizer, and you're saying it's not subsequent cognizer. That's the disagreement.
I'm saying that there'll always be a fresh perception and followed by the, in the case of a form, say.
So there will be always a valid cognizer.
There'll always be a valid cognizer, the sense direct perceiver. Whether tomorrow I come in, another sense direct perceiver, and then a subsequent cognizer. Because that's how you experience, right?
Yeah. Okay.
하고서.
단목을 싸워서 잘.
네, that's 아니 드링 해서 내가 계속 통 드링 돈을 에 서고 싸우던 거랬어. 근데 거기 기준이 받을 때는 그 제시 잘 오랬어. 근데 어떤 간데서 계속 통할 때 드링 돈을 담보 돈을 제시 잘 오랬어. 담보 돈을 세 마리했어. 계속 통하라. 드링 담보 돈 드링 돈을 담보를 세 마리했어. 이 기준이 받을 제시 잘 오랬어.
당연한 거라. 다 가지 시에서 담으로 소소삼도 담으로 가지. 근데 삼도 담으로 요와에서 아니 먼저 대사서 그래도 되게 돼.
So, because there is these different ways of explaining, but, this is what, how Geshe, let's say, he will explain, or he believes is that what you saw yesterday, and then you see it today, is no longer a valid cognizer, it is a subsequent cognizer. It's not bad. It's not bad.
But if I see this statue,
Yes.
am I having a direct sense perception of it?
Yes.
Or not?
Yes.
I am.
You have.
So
what
so
you said
you're saying
yesterday.
it's a subsequent cognizer because I've seen the statue.
제시에는
before.
무슨 말고 말아.
그렇지.
So the subsequent cognizer can also be a direct perceiver.
그래서 가야.
But it's a invalid,
예수 전에 그걸 일단 나는 또 하는 게 있어요. 고사도 또
it's a non-valid mind.
Yes. The non-valid mind, the reason why it's non-valid mind is not fresh or not new. That's the one reason. It doesn't mean it's an incorrect mind.
또 보면 이게 가야.
곤조에서 나도 세면이나 투시에 뭐를 산 거죠. 세면이나 세마 많이 봐. 세면 들고 있는 투시에 뭐를 산 거죠.
근데 지금 하시죠.
그래 투시잖아.
테.
Yeah, I think that's your confusion, about the valid. It doesn't mean it is correct. It doesn't mean if it is not valid. It doesn't mean it is an incorrect mind, mistaken mind. So subsequent mind, is invalid, but it's not a mistaken.
근데 제시가 또를 봤어. 근데 대낭에서 이걸 또 봐요. 또 예수는 저걸 봤어.
So although it's a cognizing mind, all the subsequent cognizer is a cognizing mind. So it's not necessarily a mistaken mind.
나중에서 공부했지 가래. 나중 공부 그렇게 제시 가지 제시를 나중에.
So the 세마다 세면세라 세면디.
세만 말해요. 세만 말해서 그 또로 말해서 말했어. 또로 이게 많이 보고요.
So yeah, that's the only difference. It's nothing to do with the correct or incorrect mind.
로리 뒤에와 무슨 또로 신임마도 로리 넣어 세만으로 그러나. 담아 가야지. 세마치. 아니 제시 일찍 가나.
제시 세마 제바.
제바로 대한 또로 했어. 아니 제마도 가면 따로 또 생각해서
또 또로서 더블.
이제도 나라망에 맞지요.
So anyway, so it's a mind which cognizes this object, and it's not necessarily a mistaken mind. So I think you are thinking that if it is invalid mind, it has to be
that's not. I
mistaken.
mean, that's aside from it.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that what I think my understanding of the subsequent cognizer is different than what Geshe says. So that's really the point.
That's
I'm trying to make.
That's okay. That's good.
different work.
The
Different
main
equality.
argument too is
Then
what
more
we
direct,
consider.
more thinking. It's good now.
The main argument is what we consider to be fresh. Like, what is the definition of new? And so I think Geshe was saying new would be the first time ever seeing it,
Yes.
and then so.
After that, when you see it again, whether it's yesterday, today, or after a week, or after a year, if you see something again, then it's no longer new.
So I see you in 20 years, and it's not fresh,
No.
because I've known you since you were
That's the
2.
idea.
What if there's a chip in the statue? You see that?
론 이슈 이제 그나 통과한다 싶어라.
Yeah.
나도 빠질 때 지금.
and the honosina da 지금 유화로 집어요.
다 저러시다 끼지끼지 저러시는데 아무 당번도 저러.
그래서 다 드링 셀 구요라. 사산이 천 다녀로.
대가. 야, 그거 가져와라.
So if there's a difference in object, of course that will be different. So today you see a gold color, and tomorrow if you see it all red color, then it's a different thing, right? And so tomorrow you're seeing it for the first time, so that will be valid cognizer.
Okay, now it's stop. Yeah.
Really glad. Okay.
It's not a question actually. It's actually a request. I'd like to learn the Tibetan for a lot of the terms that we're doing here. And I don't know, maybe this is a longer project or something, but I'm wondering if we could get, maybe it's just sort of as we go through it, just, do English, Wiley, and then Tibetan for each of the new words that we do every day. And then you can learn the Tibetan. That would be really helpful to me. I'd love that.
저도 베이치가 장님들 뜻아. 그냥 베이치를 가르라 그랬어. 난 베이치는 나도 이게 테마라더라 그냥. Very cognizer.
This book has
Yeah,
it.
they go, yeah.
Oh,
This one
yeah.
has it.
I also have, I was gonna ask maybe Wendy or Deborah afterwards, but I have some, there's some charts that have been done. This course has been taught at Institute Lama Tsongkhapa as part of the Master's Program and Basic Studies Program, and there are things that teachers have put together of, charts and definitions, and some of them have the Tibetan and with the words, not all the terms with the
Is
Tibetan.
that online?
It is.
And so, so I have them, so I'm wondering if we can put them up with the text. Do we have the text up on our
Yeah,
website?
the text,
Yeah.
the text is up, there's a link to it.
Can we put
And-
this
well, I
up
think-
there, or how should we do,
Yeah, no, I
can we
think,
get these to people?
I think I have those probably, they just have Devin post them.
Okay, or I can send them to Devin. Is Devin the one to post
Well, I
them?
think I have electronic copy already.
Okay, yeah, that's what I do too. Okay, whatever.
Yeah, so let me just.
But there's quite a few, so I pulled
Okay,
out the
yeah,
ones
if
that
I
I
just
thought
send
were
it, yeah.
helpful,
그러면 가서 보내. 그 보면
Yeah, what is them?
And so then where would people go on the website to find them?
거기
Right now, you get them off the calendar, right, of events. So you should click
그래.
the description of
그래.
it. It's on
I
the
got it off
description.
the email and then.
Great. 네.
Okay, so
Right.
I'll send them to you,
That's the
and
way
you
I
can
do it.
pass them on to Devin or whatever. And we'll put these charts up, and so this might be helpful for some.
Great. Yeah. Is that what you?
I don't know what that is, but it
No, yeah,
sounds
I
like
mean,
it
some
is.
of them have the Tibetan, like with existence, divisions, and things
So
like
like,
that.
for example, if you say object,
Can I photocopy it?
then in Tibetan we call it
We
yun.
don't have a
Right.
copy of
That's
that.
how you want to learn?
Exactly.
Okay, and then the subject or the object
Appearing
possessor, we
objects,
call
the
it
different
yulchen.
objects, and.
That's like that?
Yeah.
And then it will say, the valid cognizer will be tema.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, I think that has it.
Yeah.
It has that?
No, I have some things, but not complete, but maybe it'd be a basis for people to add to.
Yeah,
You can,
okay.
you
We can go ahead. It's just saying one or two times, so it shouldn't take a long time.
Yeah,
You
know,
just
so
write it
I can
down.
just say it and then you can write it down and then you know it what we're talking about.
that would be great.
Okay?
Yeah,
Sounds good.
we will find. Okay, so we have a short,